Welcome to the season finale of the Confessions podcast, a live recorded reunion episode. In honor of World AIDS Day on December 1st, 2023, 5 of the 6 women from the podcast came together for the first time to share their experiences. Tune in now to discover what the women have been up to since their podcast episodes were released.
My name is Violeta. I'm from Pomona and I'm 18 years old.
My name is Mari. I'm from the San Fernando Valley and I'm 36 years old.
My name is Joy. I'm from Los Angeles and I'm 41 years old.
My name is Marta Robles. I'm from Mexico, but right now I'm staying in San Diego and I am 56 years old.
Mi nombre es Miriam Chavarría. Yo soy nacionalidad dominicana, de República Dominicana. Tengo 56 años.
So our first question is, how has being on the podcast affected you?
Well, since the podcast has came out and I've done it, I felt like I've been able to also kind of like go back mentally and just kind of go through some of that, like of what I brought up, some of those emotions, some of that trauma. But also too, I just felt like some of my peers started to understand me a bit more once I like a couple of days after like the podcast has came out and like I had sent it to them, and I realized that like some were actually like trying to understand more, as well as like the effort for like, for example, like decriminalization with HIV and all of that, especially against like us as women.
It did affect me in the beginning. And as the days passed by, I went from feeling sorry to sorry for myself for going through so much and the way it did. To realizing to like opening my eyes, feeling liberated, like everybody's saying, and realizing, giving myself credit for all my efforts that I've done to be where I'm at, and highlighting all the good things that I have accomplished, just because we're so resilient. Everybody here is resilient, and that's why we're here. So I now. Not only I was impacted by my own story, by doing this, it has helped me realize not only how strong we are, but how we are all strong. And we use that to move forward. And not only that, help us ourselves, but so many others. Because I felt so empowered listening to every story, every experience. So I would like to say thank you.
All right. So some of you did share what your reactions were listening to your episode of the podcast. So were there any other reactions that you had listening to your episode?
I heard it while driving home, and at first I was like excited and happy. I was like, yes, I'm gonna, I've been waiting to hear it. And then once I heard it, I couldn't stop crying. I was like, oh my God, like, was I really able to do this? Like, I couldn't believe, that I had that much courage to come out and talk about things that I've never talked about. And when I tried to talk about it, kind of was shut down. So I really cried like the whole way home. And I was in traffic for about an hour, and I was like, oh my God. And then, I don't know. After that, I was like, okay, I'm good. Shake it off and let's keep going. Let's get this party started.
So our next question is there something you wish you would have said but didn't get the chance to share in your episode?
I think that my mother heard this episode. Okay. I had shared the podcast with her, and, she knew that I was going to be one of the episodes. So she was like religiously like listening to everything, trying to see which one was me. And she didn't tell me, but she told my sister she felt really bad, like offended. And I think that it was important for me to say that the relationship that we had before is not the same relationship that we have now. She's been there for me. We've made amends. I love my mother. She's really helped trying to make her wrongs right. And so I really commend her, because I don't blame her, like I said in my episode, for the trauma that she carries and how she tried to you know, escape the things that she was living with my father. And so I really want her to know that I love her and that I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt her feelings. And I just want people to know that, hear this, that my life is about forgiveness. My episode is about forgiveness and moving forward and making amends with myself and with those around me that have hurt me, and, you know, directly or indirectly. But I just want people to know that it's okay to forgive. And it's not so much for the other person on that end, but for ourselves in order for us to heal. So I really want people to know that I forgive my mother and I love her, and she's in the picture. You know, she loves her grandkids, and yeah.
And I text you. I said, "Wow, I have a new found way of just forgive." And to add to what you were saying is that I was holding back a lot of mentioning. I think the one thing that I've learned through therapy is just not focus on my trauma, but how um not cope with it. It's in my mind, but just in ways how highlight all the efforts that my parents have made. And I didn't talk about my childhood traumas that I feel like are the reason why I feel that I have low self-esteem, and that causes me not to it to realize who I am now and why I accepted so much bad in my life.
Thank you so much. Who did you share the podcast with, and what were their reactions or feedback?
I've disclosed to so many people, actually, now that I think about it. Like I've sent the podcast to coworkers, and they're like, "Oh my God, like I can't thank you for sharing this with me." Like I sent it to one of my old coworkers. She's like, "I'm so mad at you right now because you made me cry at 7 a.m. Like, I can't believe you." And they just, the praise that I get back of like, I knew you've, overcome a lot, but just not the way like we thought. And so, a few people know I sent it to my older brother. I didn't get a response from him, but it's hard. It's hard in a Hispanic household. It's hard to show emotion and kind of show feelings. So I understand. I'm giving him some time, and I expect a phone call or a text. So we'll see how it goes. But I was able to share with my daughter, and I think that was the most vulnerable moment I have from sharing the podcast, because I was afraid. I was really afraid of letting her know, and her just like, and I told her that day, just know that I'm going to keep fighting, and I'm going to, stay healthy, and I'm going to stay alive for you guys. I love you guys. And so
I had to think about it first. I'm like, okay, I have this podcast episode with all this like really like intimate information. Who am I going to share this to specifically? Because I could have just easily gone with everybody on my Instagram feed, done. But I really thought about it, and when I had just came out, like a bit of my peers already knew like there was like a podcast in the works, and they were just waiting for that. So I was really excited to show that to them because it was just that. But what really hit different was actually sending that to family members, not because like, I usually don't speak to like work related things with them, but also with that, it's like if they knew about my diagnosis, and I said I think in my podcast, like I wasn't able to like share that with them. Like basically it was my mom who like told everyone behind my back after telling me not to even share it in the first place because of the stigma and La Familia, it's crazy. But after like having them hear my experience, and also to have like multiple years of me feeling like I was kind of like the kid that was like always getting in trouble, or like nadie me quería creer. So ya que podía like hablar sobre mi historia, like they were like shocked, but more of like, oh, like that's your experience. That's how you felt. Like that's how you saw it. And it did open up a bit of like view with them. If anything, it made me closer to my cousins. And yeah, I mean, besides my mom too, who she's like, oh, you talk shit. But But like she knew it was gonna happen though. It's like she was talking about it the whole time because it's like, girl, you're responsible. You know, you can't act like I wasn't gonna do that. But it's my experience. But yeah, it was really nice sharing it too. I especially once like I put it on my like Instagram story. That was like because that's when more than just like your close followers. Like that's when mostly a lot of people will see it. And at first they're just be like, what? But when they saw it was me, I guess that was really like the amount of like messages I was getting, like, oh my god, like I'm like, where's like people are just asking where it was gonna be on, and that's when I was just happy to give more information. Like, oh, it's gonna be on Spotify, it's gonna be on this, you can do it. Yeah. So it was that process. So thank you.
I had an opposite experience. I did want to share with my sister, which she's the only one that knows about my story, and I just didn't feel like mainly because when I talked about my parents, she knows that most of my traumas are based on my parents. And I was just talking about my parents' accomplishment. I just didn't want her to hear how, you know, what would be her thoughts about it. So I didn't share it. I'm glad to hear about the other people that did their episode, how they shared it. That has encouraged me. Even what they're saying right now, that it gives me hope that I can reach that level of being feeling comfortable. At the moment, I don't feel comfortable sharing it with people that know me, like who I really, I guess, extended family. But I love to share it at my groups. My social worker knows. People at the clinic know. I shared it at people that I felt like they would benefit. And the good thing is that because I'm not ready yet, I can say, hey, this has impacted me. Listen to this episode, finding joy. And then that's a good way of sharing the information, yet still feeling empowered to do so, even though I'm not ready.
What has changed for you since the podcast?
My whole life, I feel like I was a caterpillar. And I just was dragging myself because I was so ashamed of myself for being positive. And it's weird how it says you're positive, and like you have to have a positive mentality. But I really felt so ashamed and I didn't share with anybody. I mean, the only people that knew was my husband and my mom and my siblings. And so my daughter is here. She's 16 years old. When I was diagnosed, I was 6 weeks pregnant with her. And my whole life, I just, when I was diagnosed, I never spoke about it and things like that. And I didn't feel comfortable sharing because of the stigma. And it was just horrible. And so when I did the episode, and it was like the first launch that we had with Joy's episode, I was able to, share with her and disclose to my daughter that I was positive. Joy was there. Xavier was there, and they were really, it was like all a plan when I was taking her to the dinner, right? It was my plan to like disclose to her, like, I'm going to tell her, and, I got this. And when the time was coming, I felt really, really nervous. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to tell her anymore. Like, what is she going to say? And she started having questions about like the medication I was taking already, being a little nosy girl. And she thought I had mental health problems. She's like, well, you take Biktarvy, you have mental health. And I was like, excuse me, that's not for mental health. And she's like, well, what is it for? And so I knew that time was, coming to fruition where I needed to tell her. And so once I did, it was hard. I didn't think I thought it was just going to flow out and then we were going to be good. But I shared with her, and I just wanted her to know how special she was, because when my dad passed away, it was like the second day or the third day when I found out I was positive. And I always told my dad, as dysfunctional and as abusive as he was, I would tell him, like, when you die, I'm going to die with you. Like, there's no question. Like, you're going to die and I'm going to just die with you, because I cannot be on this earth without my dad. And I was pregnant. So I couldn't die with him because I had something to live for. And so when I was diagnosed, I was like, oh my God, like I'm really going to die now. But my daughter really kept me from taking my own life, because that's what, I thought about when I was diagnosed. And then my dad had died. So there was really nothing to live for. And so I was able to disclose to my daughter, and I feel so much better.
Although I struggle with my diagnosis, and I think it's important to say that because I do always try to be strong, but I still struggle with it. And I just feel like so accepted and supported. I know they don't know me very well, and I don't know them very well, but I feel like we have one common ground that we want better for ourselves, and not only that, we deserve it, and we're striving, we're resilient and so empowered, and that's helping me right now. Although this was difficult, I feel much better. I feel like it's really helping me process. I know it might seem like I'm having a difficult time with it, but it really is helping me to feel not at ease, but come to terms, which is important for me for my progress. So I greatly appreciate that.
Like us having to come together as well, and like actually unite together, everyone, whether we're positive or not, and get tested and all of that. And as well, like thanks to the medication like Victoria and all of that, I feel like it's also very much so important to like realize that because we are still here having this conversation, it shows that this is still very much a real issue and it shouldn't happen in the first place. HIV discrimination is very much systemic. Ever since the medications like PrEP and, for example, like Victoria and the ones that are actually to treat the virus have came out, like the statistics for it going down has only got down in white communities. So that leaves us with Black and Latina communities still at very much higher risk.
Have you considered long-acting injectable medication?
I want injectables because I'm really bad at taking medication. But because I've been on and off my medication, I've created a resistance to one of the injectables. And so I do have options, and I'm going to look into it. Hopefully, it's going to be like one more injection that I would have had if I would have been, religious with my medication. But it's okay. I know there's options, and I know that as time goes on, things are changing. And so I still have that ray of sunshine there that says, I still have hope that I will be able to get the injectables. And when I do, I will come back with the result.
I would like to be on injectables. However, I'm struggling with anxiety, severe generalized anxiety, which the injectables, from what I've been told, that can trigger or amplify my anxiety. So I'm trying to take care of that first. And once that is, I feel regulated, then I will contact my doctor. And because that's huge for me. When I heard about injectables, that was amazing.
I would just like to say y'all reminded me about injectables. When I first got my diagnosis, at the time, because get my diagnosis, I'm reading everything about HIV, and I've already seen a couple commercials. There's a couple injectables, and I remember asking my doctor about it, and he was like, well, first you have to be at an undetectable status to do it. And I'm like, okay. So, but that was before like the first 6 months of taking my meds of Victoria. So now y'all just reminded me. So in the next 2 months, I might go and switch up my meds.
What advice do you have for other women newly diagnosed or living with HIV?
We are here for you if you feel alone, if you're newly diagnosed. We've been through it. We've probably got told the worst way we could have ever been told that we were positive. But my focus has switched over to let women know that we have already been through this road for you to not go down that road anymore. So just know that we are here, and we are here to support you, and that you know that you are loved, and it's going to be okay.
Thank you for tuning in to the Season 1 finale of the Confessions podcast. We want to give a huge shout out and congrats to the amazing women who have shown incredible strength and courage in sharing their stories. This officially concludes Season 1 of Confessions, HIV-Positive Women. But don't you worry, Season 2 is coming soon to your streaming platform. So get ready to hear more inspiring stories. Please don't forget to subscribe and follow us. This podcast is brought to you by the Los Angeles Family AIDS Network in collaboration with The Women Together and produced by Mahia.tv.